Another day, another patch. Alright, so this is a tricky one to do standing. I usually need a stool because I'm doing some control pedal stuff, some foot pedal stuff for the side chain. But I just wanted to give you a quick little overview of all the sounds I've got going on between these two programs for Caleb Hawley's song, Carelessly. So Caleb's one of the first people I started playing with when I moved to New York. It's been just a joy to be a part of his project, and recently, he hasn't been playing a whole lot, but he did a one-off here in New York, and this was after I got to stage 4. And he didn't want to do it with the full Ableton setup like I usually do, where I run the tracks. Sometimes I even manipulate some vocal effects from the computer. All my sounds come from the computer. He just wanted to keep it simple. So I had a chance to build these sounds on the Nord, and this is where I landed. And I thought there's a lot going on in this song, so I'd make a video about it. And these videos are just kind of to talk through my process and share some of the insights I come across along the way as I navigate this fairly new instrument, though I do feel at this point I'm getting to know it pretty well. So this is our FM synth for the verses of Carelessly. And it's got a lot of punch, right? But if we turn off the filter and turn off the effects, we'll notice that it's a pretty wimpy starting point. So if you're ever searching for a sound, if you hear something kind of close, just remember you can probably get there through a combination of filter and effects. So let's start by looking at filter. We'll turn our resonance down, envelope down, frequency all the way up. And we'll get our keyboard tracking and drive off. So this should effectively sound the same whether it's on or off. And the first thing we'll do is we want to create that kind of wow, right? That typical envelope effect. So we'll roll it off, knowing that we can bring in, actually the first thing we'll do is we just don't have a lot of high-end information. So let's bring in the drive and bring the filter back up. So you can hear that the drive is adding a lot of nice color. So we'll start with that. Then we'll roll off our filter, knowing that we can get some of that high end back with the envelope. So I've got an envelope that is a immediate attack and a pretty quick decay. And as we bring that in, we start to hear that punch, right? We hear that transient, and then it kind of closes down. So that's not bad. Probably play around with the keyboard tracking. Hear a slight difference there, but what that's going to mean is that the higher up the keyboard we go, we're just going to get a little extra filter kicking in, and that's just going to keep it a little more even across the territory. So drive and keyboard tracking all the way up, and maybe we can boost some resonance. Yeah, it's kind of nice. It gives it like just a little bit of like harmonic coloration there. Without, right? I mean, you can really accentuate it to get an idea. And we just kind of bring it down. Maybe let's bring it close to about 4. And that's pretty good for our filter. Let's add a compressor first, because at this point the sound is just kind of soft. So let's look at, I got it set to like 6 here. And that immediately just thickens it up a bunch. So maybe we could have started there. Compressor is always a good move. After all, this is pop music. So that on its own is pretty good. Right, we've got that kind of envelope filter effect. It's got a lot of punch from the compressor. The only other things we might want to add are a little bit of reverb, just the slightest little dash of some stage here. Looks like I have it set to 0.8, so I'll bring it down here. And it's on the bright mode, just to kind of accentuate that top end. And then I added some low pass filter here and a little bit of drive, just to give it a little more kind of harmonic distortion. You don't really hear like drive yet, but you just hear the slightest onset of those of that saturation kicking in. And the low pass filter, the goal there, and we're not hearing it so much in this recreation of the sound, so I'm just going to go ahead and initialize. The goal there was to cut out some of that really harsh attack, right? So we bring in that filter, and that top end kind of like clicky poppy stuff is gone. Without, with. So you still get the meat of the sound without that kind of like painful onset. So that's enough for that verse patch. Let's jump over here to this patch here. As you can see here, I started with a preset, soft pad 1, so we can go ahead and hear what that preset sounds like on its own. Pretty similar. You can see that I didn't do a whole lot with it, but it's darker and it has a little bit less of like an envelope, kind of like open and close, right? So let's go ahead and initialize. So what's going on? We've got a filter, we've got a band pass, a little bit of drive, keyboard tracking on 2 out of 3, 2/3, I'm not really sure what that means. And a nice 84 millisecond onset for our filter envelope, and then a slow decay. Although I imagine sometimes I'm probably hearing the release if I hit it short enough. Anyways, you play with those settings. Here it is without the envelope. And the envelope added in to taste. You get that kind of... So if you listen to the original recording, you'll hear what I'm referencing there. And the only other things going on are a little bit of reverb and a little bit of delay. A little timed delay. I suppose I could add like a little auto pan so it kind of sounds like it's like moving from side to side. But anyways, I kept it simple here. And then to get into the chorus, I go to Layer Scene 2. I've got my foot pedal down here for some side chain and my control pedal for opening up the filter and also adding some spin. So let's kind of walk through what's going on here. Turn off all of our effects. Here's the raw sound soloed. All right, so I'm moving the control pedal and we're getting a filter boost. Effectively that. All right, no filter, filter back on. So let's add the pump pedal. So it's like a quick attack and then kind of a slow decay. Those settings here are 4.4 and 10. So full amount, meaning it's gonna really duck it. And I guess 4.4 is kind of the amount however they map that out into a single knob, but it's a combination of attack and release. And or I suppose this is more like attack or depth, and then this is controlling mostly release. Anyways, did we have delay? I can't even remember. Oops. No delay. Sounds like just a little bit of EQ to cut out some of the top end there. Maybe it's a mid-range thing. Let's see what's going on. 1.9 kilohertz, down 10 dB. Yeah. I don't know, just kind of darkens it a bit. And the control pedal here is modulating the spin setting, and it's just increasing the rate. So without that, it's a little boring. Right? It really, like, down the center, lacks a lot of, like, depth. You can hear a bit of filter modulation here, which I didn't mention, but that's a slow triangle wave hitting the filter just a little bit. But it's really this spin effect that's giving it kind of the vibe. And so, you know, I probably set the rate down to, well, yeah, probably down like around here, maybe like 2 or 3. Control pedal brings it up to about 7. It's got a long release, so I can let go of the keys and it still rings out, and we can still get that pump effect on the tail of that sound, which allows me to switch to the next patch. And I can be pumping it while I make the switch, and then we've got the chorus. So that's it for the verse patch, and now let's take a look at the chorus. This is kind of the main defining feature, and you'll hear that in the track. It's just this like poly arpeggiator, which is great because the Nord Stage 4 delivers on that front. Let's take a look. Is this, yep, that's it. So the first thing I want to mention actually is that obviously we have an arpeggiator, so we'll look at that, but check out the master clock settings. So if we go in here, we have hard, we have off, we have soft. So you know, I'm not totally clear on exactly what each of those does, but off means that depending depending on when you press it, it doesn't matter. The arpeggiator is just going, right? Soft has something to do with like, I don't know. All I know is that hard means when you do hit it, it's gonna start the arpeggiator right when you hit it. So this allows for the internal tempo to be set to the time of the song, but then it's relying on me to accurately hit the downbeat, and then it's gonna kick in that arpeggiator. So as long as I hit it right on the beat, then it's gonna match the tempo of the song. And this song does have like a slight track, or a fairly thick track played by the drummer, so it's important that I nail that. So as that's going, I can kind of change the chord a little bit. Pump it on every 4 beats. Now, the alternative here is I could set pump to not be to the pedal and instead program it to be master clock and bring it up. And I would have the same effect here. So I think as long as I hit it. So that's the alternative. I don't know, I just kind of enjoy pressing the pedal. It's a little more fun. People like seeing it at shows like, oh my God, he's sidechaining live. But that's the alternative. As long as I hit it right on the downbeat, boom. You know, the downbeat relative to the other people I'm playing with, then it's gonna be great because they're playing to a click, or the drummer is to a click at 102. Anyways, enough about that. That's what's going on there. The poly arpeggiator is, you know, obviously mapped to the master clock, so you would adjust that by using shift and turning the knob. And the rate is 1/16. So there it is without the pump effect, with the pump effect. And that's how I made that sound. There's a touch of verb, a little, looks like added brightness from the EQ, maybe tuck in some of the bass. And then there's a lot coming from the delay. I guess we should talk about that. So it's a very fast delay, set to ping pong. And it's just giving it that width, that kind of like flamminess. But I didn't use flam, because flam probably would have been a little too drastic. Let's check it out. Yeah, like that's a little, like what the heck's going on? So just regular old delay, ping pong with a super fast time, and it just gives it that kind of like, you know, widening effect of it hitting your ears at just a slightly different time. No effects, pump, EQ, delay, and a dash of reverb. So that's that bass sound for the, well, it's not a bass sound, but the foundational sound of the chorus. And then there's this really kind of abrasive, super crunchy, bright synth, which we'll hear here. Let's see, here we go. Pure saw, yeah, baby. So let's see, let's take off our effects, take off our filter. So we've got a little bit of a filter envelope kicking in, you can hear. And we've got no drive, actually. A little bit of keyboard tracking, low pass 12. And we've got no resonance. Filters at 2.3 kilohertz. Let's get it about there. And 3.3 on the envelope amount. I wouldn't say it's terribly different without. In some ways, this might actually cut a little better in the mix. But alas, that's where I ended up. So some slight tweaks to the filter. We've got unison, which is going to give it a lot more width because you got 3 voices kind of competing with like the slightest little tuning variations. Here it is without unison. Boring. Unison just really fattens it up, right? And a little bit of velocity sensitivity. And it looks like that's all that's going on with this sound. But we can bring back in some of our effects here. So what did we got? We got some drive and obviously some reverb. So there's just a touch of drive, maybe some EQ, not totally sure. Compressor definitely pulling its weight there. And stage reverb just kind of giving it some air behind it. Put those together. All right, I forgot forgot about the pump effect without the pedal. Oh yeah, so I lost those changes I made, so real quick. Quarter notes. There we go. Or hold it for the pedal variation and I can do it myself. Obviously the setting is a little different, right? You hear the automated one is a lot more drastic. Oh, whoops. So something like that, or with the pedal. A little more subtle. Anyways, tweak those settings to your liking. That's how I ended up there. And then the only thing to note here is that I probably copied over the sound, this soft pad sound. Did a little copy, and then went over to my chorus patch and was like, all right, layer 3, let's do a little paste. But we're gonna bring it down 2 octaves here. And it looks like I've got a phaser on that one. Just gives it a little more kind of bite, I suppose, in the mix. And so I bring that in with layer scene 2. So layer scene 1 doesn't have layer 3 there, and layer scene 2 adds layer 3. And that way I'm accomplishing kind of a lot with, you know, my 2 hands and my 2 feet, and really filling out the chorus and the verse of Carelessly by Caleb Hawley. So that's just a little rundown of some of my thought process and what went into making these patches. Hope you enjoyed this video. There will indeed be more, so stay tuned.